Welcome to the Wingly Update, name to be decided. Forget everything you know about programming language for the cloud. Now, welcome your host, Eyal Keren.
Hello. I'm kidding. So hello, how you doing, man?
Great. I wasn't sure you're talking to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the only one here. So what's up?
I'm good. And thank you, Shai, for joining us. Let's do the thing that you show the show display name. So my name is Eyal, and welcome to the Wingly. I don't keep track. I don't know which episode we are anymore. Someone is signaling we're in the 9th episode.
14.
The 14th episode. Oh my God. What have we been doing? 14 episodes? Oh my God. I'm wasting my life here. And we have Shai with us today. Shai, the founder of the company formerly known as Monada. Co-founder, one of the co-founders of the company formerly known as Monada. And a guest in the first show episode of the Wingly. And also, you kind of co-started at one time when I was ill.
Yeah.
Not something people will remember, basically. And we're here to talk about a bunch of stuff. First of all, is we want to introducing Wingcloud, and then we're gonna have a Mark the DJ session with our one and only Mark the DJ, and then we're gonna have a session to talk about kind of what's new in Winglang, kind of the changelog item with the same one and only Mark. And then we're going to go and talk with Jono Bacon as a guest star, and we're going to have a chat with him and Revital, and I'll let Revital set up the stage for that. And then hopefully, and probably not, we're going to talk about the good first issues and help wanted. We are always missing the last item.
Yeah, if we have time.
Yeah, if we have time.
Which we never have.
Yeah, we never have time. So it's been an interesting week for us here at Wingcloud, right, Shai? Tell us a little bit what happened.
Yeah, it's been an extremely interesting week, as probably all of our viewers already know. We launched Wingcloud exactly last week, and it was a big media attention with articles on TechCrunch and other media outlets all over the world, and we got a lot of attention and people who are reaching out, and developers who are trying out Winglang, and other people who are trying to figure out exactly what Wingcloud is and what solutions we offer apart from just the Wing language. So we're kind of we also had other activities, so it's been a busy week.
Yeah, we also kind of announced that the company was funded with $20 million. That's also kind of big news. I don't know if that's something that happens to you every day, but that's
it doesn't happen to me for sure.
For sure, yeah.
20 million seed round, and that's because we're building something big. As some journalists like to call it, ambitious.
Ambitious. Okay. Okay. And another thing that happened is we were all kind of I would say a month ago we were all part of the company called Monada, but now we're part of the company called Wingcloud. Can you tell us a little bit about this change?
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone, like any of our viewers, knew the name Monada. Basically, we had
hey Marcio.
We had the Wing language, and that's the open source project, and our main product right now. It's actually not a product; it's an open source project, and that we're building together with a community. And but we were a company that was called Monada, and we were a happy bunch of 16 people working mainly on Winglang. But just before the launch of all these news articles, we kind of saw that having one name for our flagship project and another name for the company was confusing to people. Like, okay, so we know you as the Wing guys. Now you're
Right.
Monada. So what's up with that? And like a good startup, we decided to do things in the last minute, and we changed names twice. I think,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know what? We should say that kind of in the last minute we changed the name, and that's it. We have the name. It was Wing Systems, and then after that last minute we changed. We made another change, and the name is Wing Cloud. So I mean, yeah.
And who knows what we're going to be called next week?
Right. We just went with a team discussion where people were still trying to adjust to the name and the relationship between Winglang and WingCloud. Is that a product or not a product? And it was an interesting discussion. Naming is hard. Every developer knows this. Naming is hard. I wonder where this is going to take us. But let's talk about kind of the vision of the company. Do you have something prepared for us? I think you do, right?
Not prepared, but
Okay.
but yeah, we have like basically. You want to show the website of the Wing Cloud, or just talk about it?
You can show it. You want to share the screen?
Well, let's see.
You need to present and then share.
Share screen.
Then I think I need to. Okay, we're waiting. You want me to do it? Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, do it.
I'll do it.
Oh, wait, no.
So what, you want me to show Wing Cloud?
Yep.
Okay, so let me do this.
I'm just a guest. I better not let me.
Okay, so this is
share anything.
so this is off script. We're getting off script.
Yeah.
Now let me present.
Off script. We don't have a script.
Yeah, thank God. I don't know how to do it with a script.
Yeah.
Share.
The one time we tried, it was much worse.
Wow, it was it's still hard. What am I saying here? Not the
Yeah.
right. not
Okay,
the right
let me
screen.
share it.
Not the right screen. Stop screen.
I assume that as the host, you're gonna.
Yeah,
Do
I
it better
assumed
than
I
me.
assumed so, but I am not able to do it. It seems. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay. Build
So-
above the cloud.
Yeah, so this is the Wing Cloud website, which was developed in about 2 days.
But what crazy they've done.
Yeah, and we're proud of it. I think it turned out pretty nice, and it tells the story of this kind of an abstract cloud that we're trying to build. So basically, as written here, we're creating a unified programming and operational experience that works across all cloud providers and services. So what does it mean in reality? That's kind of a cryptic language here because there's not enough room for in a short tagline. So basically, it means that we want to help developers and DevOps engineers and operation persons. We want to help everyone that's in the cloud development and management business to be able to build applications, deploy them, and then manage them, and to do it in a one unified experience that's, in our mind, much better than what developers are used to today. And so basically, we're starting with the Wing language. That's a programming language, and again, the unified theme continues. So a language that unifies the infrastructure and runtime in one model, and then.
And I think that the language is kind of this is the shining beacon. This is where basically you take all what we believe in how cloud development should look like, and this is where we're aiming for. But from a practical perspective, we want to supply services that will allow basically to do the same thing that Winglang allows you to do, to basically write and test and develop things locally and then release them to any cloud. I think probably Elad kind of does a good job explaining this in his blog that announces it. So basically, kind of goes through the introducing Wing Cloud, and then the programming language.
And you're sharing the blog.
Yeah, and then the standard library, for example.
Yeah, so I think it goes from the development stage, so language to write code, and then we have the Cloud SDK, which is a standard library of the language, which is a high-level abstraction layer over all the cloud. So basically, you can write code once in an abstract level and then compile to different clouds and different provisioning engines. So we have cloud portability. The SDK also, because you write code in an abstract level, you can also compile it to a local simulator.
Right.
So then this helps with local development.
Right.
So it allows us to interact with the application, to test the application. We can actually write tests that run as unit tests locally, but also run on the cloud. So that's a big piece for the development phase. And then in between the development phase and deployment phase, we're working on preview environments. Right. So I make a pull request and I want to interact with my Wing application, kind of like developers are used to in front end, like what Vercel is doing. So we want to be able to collaborate and test and show it to other stakeholders in the company, to maybe a designer or a PM or a salesperson. So that's like another part of the unified cloud experience. And then the next part is obviously we want to deploy our application, and this is something that might come in the future, kind of like a managed multi-cloud self-host platform. And the last phase is after we've deployed the application, we want to be able to manage it and to perform operations on it. So this is something that we've started looking at. It's called the Wing Cloud Console.
Right.
And it's basically a unified application-centric management console. So you don't just view your application as a bunch of resources, but you view it from above. You see the logical structure of the application, and whenever you want to perform operations on it, so you're not searching for some Lambda to invoke where you don't know what it does, but you're looking for some like subsection of a subsection of a subsection.
I think in a way, when we're developing application, we have the business logic in mind. We're saying that this is a queue that connects to these things, and when we're looking at our infrastructure in AWS, for example, we lose the context of the domain of the business, and then if you're using Wing, if you're using a lot of cloud resources, that's even a bigger problem for you, because you have a bunch of resources and you don't know what's their actual purpose from a business perspective and a user perspective. So kind of the cloud console is a solution for those kind of things.
Yep. Precisely. So that's pretty much the vision of Wing Cloud, and that's what we raised money to build, and hopefully we can make it work and provide a good experience for developer, for DevOps, and for operation people, and that's it.
Yeah. So awesome. Darren Sheffer, the advancer of Kubernetes Scale, he was talking about returning to the console. It looks like he's a visionary. Interesting. I'm not familiar with this article. So basically, what we're saying, the first manifestation of this is Winglang, but Wing Cloud, the company, will basically produce more manifestation of this. So I'm excited to see what you're going to build. Interesting to see what your product person is thinking about this, but we don't have him online. Instead, the person that we do have online, and you should stay to get him in touch, is Mark, who will be wearing a bunch of hats today. The first one is his DJ hat. Shai, any last thing to say about Wing Cloud? First of all, congratulations for the raise, man. It's a great milestone.
Congrats to
all of us.
To all of us, everyone on the team,
and everyone in the community. Thanks for this is a shared success, and it's a huge milestone.
Basically, when you raise at this early stage, a lot of like what investors look at is the team, and whatever you're building, and the traction and the community that it generates, and the activity in the community. So really, lots of thanks to everyone on the team, everyone in the community, and keep
Awesome.
up the good work, everyone.
Great. So I'm going to have Mark the DJ. You're going to say hi to Mark. Hey, Mark, how you doing, man?
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. And we're going to say bye to you, Shai. We're going to say bye. It was fun having you here.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the time. And bye-bye, Shai. So, Mark, as the Wingly DJ, what do you have for us today?
I have a song I really love, but I'm cheating a little bit because I've actually posted this song before in the Slack channel, the music Slack channel. I'm deeply ashamed of this, what I've done by playing it here again. I ask you all to forgive me, but it's a really, really good song with a really interesting video, like a really, really good visuals. And it's called Charmander by Amine.
Awesome, man. And let's hear Charmander by Anime.
Keeping to myself and staying out the way. Always on my lonely cause I can't change. Seeing how they talking and I'm outraged. Taking care of me, don't need a damn thing.
I've been living on an island too. I've been living on an island too. I've been living on an island too. I've been living on an island.
Yeah.
Tell me, can we?
Shawty suck my dick, then I get lost in the abyss. I'm a quiet motherfucker, but I like to talk my shit. I'm off for shroom, I'm off for bean, I'm off for hoe.
There's a part in the video clip that someone is complaining about the huge dog pooing in the. Are we gonna see this? Is this cut off or were we?
I didn't in the sections I sent to you. I left that part out.
Got
I
it.
didn't know like I feel like it'd be because there's no music in that part.
Yeah, no music.
So it would feel weird to suddenly just be like, someone took a shit in my lawn, and it's like,
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
is this the music break? Is that what we're doing now? Feel free to play it. I would find it funny, but
Yeah, no, it's
I don't know.
I found it funny. I thought you would put it in. To be honest.
I'm nothing but respectful of this platform.
Awesome, man. So we try a new item here, and we kind of I kind of caught you by surprise, and we want to talk about we call it the changelog, or without the de changelog, and this is kind of a regular item we're gonna have to talk about what's new in Winglang, or maybe what's new that interests you in Winglang. What do you want to share with us, Mark?
So with my several seconds of preparation that I took for this,
Okay.
I think that's all the power I had. That's all I could do.
Okay.
But so what I can do is I will go through some of the changes the last, I guess, couple of weeks. We had a code freeze actually, so it even adds a little bit of a weird complication there. But we were still working the entire time, and all the changes during the freeze got put in. So let's start with a really big one. I'm just going to share. Let's see.
Awesome, man.
Do you have to add this to the screen? Yes, you do.
Yes, I have. I know, and you're in, man.
And there it is. All right. So from Chris from the team, I think I'm starting with the big one. I'm not going to lead into this. The kind of an initial setup for having multiple wing files. This is something that everyone knows.
A programming language with more than one file. That's what you're telling me here.
It's crazy. We might get rid of it. I don't know. Maybe it's too much.
It's
but
experimental.
now
feature.
So right now you can write a wing file and you can import or bring types, most importantly classes, but also interfaces and such from other wing files. Thereby getting your being able to clean up your giant wing file that you may have been carrying around. There's still some stuff to do, of course, but just being able to do that is a huge step.
So how's that kind of when I think about kind of a single wing file right now has kind of the class declaration, and then it also serves as an entry point. I can do new API kind of. How's that going to work right now? How does it work right now? And how do you think it should work?
Definitely, those are different things. How it currently works is that there's a separation of what is considered an entry point, like you're saying.
Yeah.
So that's the file that you run when you wing it or when you wing compile. that file is the entry point, and then any other file is effectively like a module file or a library file. This isn't really explicit anywhere. It just suddenly kind of becomes that once it's imported. So yeah, there's certain limitations for what you can do in a library file versus an entry point file. I think there's still currently an issue open about talking about this whole thing.
Right.
I think it was still good that because Chris still got the initial feature in to kind of unlock the capability, but I think the kind of nitty gritty details are still being worked out as to like the developer experience of working on like this kind of different file type that now exists.
Yeah, but you're an opinionated guy, man. What's your opinion?
Well, I have a lot of my opinions are linked to the VS Code extension. So I think about if I open up a language like a file that's supposed to be like a library file in the VS Code extension, how do I know that I'm being imported somewhere else and I'm not an entry point? Like it's kind of there's a little bit of a strange issue there. But I can't really think of a really good solution because I hate the idea of like adding like a module block, then adding like nesting. I don't know. I don't have a good solution. Luckily, that's why it's still being thought about in that issue. So if anyone listening to this has thoughts, please go there, read through the thread. I will not link it for you because I will not find it right now.
I kind of feel like all this. I mean, I kind of feel like all solutions are. I mean, did anyone was able to do a good job? I mean, it doesn't sound like. I mean, in Java, I remember you have a main, kind of a weird kind of syntax for a main file, and that declares an entry point, and then you can define it the entry point in Ant I used to use. So that was weird.
Yeah.
But also kind of when I require something in Node.js, does it run the code outside? What's going on? Yes, it runs the code. So it's weird. I mean, and we have tests. We have the test syntax. Where does that fall into?
Yeah. It's mostly how interesting Wing is that it kind of like it doesn't quite fall into any of the existing solutions. Like you said, a main function is a way of saying this is an entry point.
Right.
And then like JavaScript and Python, like everything's effectively kind of a module. So they can all load each other. Right. And when you load a module, it's like a living thing. It has values in it that exists and stay live.
They have a scope, right? They have the scope of the file. There's some weird stuff around this.
Yeah, it's a whole. So like, there's not. It's not an easy solution for any language, but I think especially for Wing, it's not easy. I'm opinionated, but I don't have an answer.
Okay, your opinion, but you don't have an answer. Yeah, so we're winging it so far. I see Chris comment that my mind is blown for having this. My mind is blown. I actually already used this feature because I love tests, so I have a test assertion file that I can just use because our assertion Winglang assertion right now is very limited. Let's just say that. I mean, it's very hard to assert stuff and actually know what doesn't work. So I have that, and I see Adam Ruka presenting a classic solution. I don't even remember. I know I've seen this. What is this? This is
it's a Python.
It's a Python thing.
Python thing.
Right.
Like just like a way of saying that's the thing. Every solution either looks ugly, weird, kind of like it doesn't quite feel right. But like a main, it's too bad we don't have like an int main equivalent. That would be the easiest option, but that would be weird too.
Yeah.
It's really it's a tough one. I think it's going to be one of our hotly debated things.
We can. I'm sure a lad has an opinion. I don't know.
Nah, he's fine. I'm just kidding.
Okay, nice. I think we. I have to say, I think we did a great discussion on this feature. Kudos to us.
I picked a couple. I picked a few more. One I'll do really quick because it feels weird talking. Because I did this one and I don't want to talk about it for long. Anyway, but short thing.
A classic move by you, man, my friend.
I don't want. Yeah, I don't. If my face is there, I don't want to talk about it. But I'm pretty happy with like we took a last shot at performance profiling and checking things in or before we did the launch. I'm happy with this change where primarily when you're compiling to a simulator target, it's going to be at least twice as fast That's kind of like probably faster depending on what you are and aren't doing in the file, but it was a pretty huge. It was a pretty big improvement to performance. So if you, it's probably shaved off a few hundreds of milliseconds from like a normal compilation time, which is noticeable when we're talking about in the order of
Right.
the like 600 milliseconds to run it. So see, I can tell how hot this debate is.
Yeah.
With the previous topic, it's raging in the comments already. And that's how.
Everybody has an opinion. I have to say, Mark, I really like how you communicated this, because before, I saw a comment about what you found about the performance, where you think you could improve, and then 2 days later I saw you push this, and I was really kind of disconnected from this because I was minding my own business regarding the launch, but still felt was that that your communication will really kind of allowed me to feel that I'm part of it. So I really like that. I'm really learning a lot how people kind of should behave in open source projects. So that was awesome to see.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, sure, as Wing matures over and over, like, well, you can't just go in there and cowboy stuff. Like, it'll definitely be important to, we should all do our due diligence of making changes. But I will keep going. To another Chris change actually. So on deploy, cloud.onDeploy. If you're a CDK user like me, or maybe other IAC tools, this kind of concept is something I use all the time. At least once in any application I had, the feature is that allows you to run an in-flight function post deploy or during deployment rather.
So is it post deploy or during deployment? What's the verdict?
Philosophical. I mean, it's during deployment, I believe. It's like the deployment process does it. Actually, sorry, I actually don't know exactly how this feature works. I'm assuming it's during deployment. That's how the usual feature like this works. But yeah, let's say during. Let's go with during, and then someone in chat can correct me if not.
Okay. So Chris, we're waiting for you to say it's during or post. Okay, and also Elad, also during or post. Everybody's saying we're going to post this and see whether it's during or post. Awesome. Yes, it is during.
During. Each time the application is deployed. I could have scrolled up in the docs, maybe a little better.
Great.
Sorry. Oh, there's a cat in the way. There's a cat here. Yeah, so during the deployment it runs that. It's a huge feature, huge thing. I haven't used it yet, but
when would you use it? When would you use it?
This is the kind of thing where it's like I can always use it, but I can never think of an example. Seeding a database is one I've used it for. My last job, that's something I did. Okay. I seeded a database with some data. Boom. Awesome. So after it deploys the database, I want to run a script to populate it.
Does add object use the same mechanism, or does add object? I mean, the bucket.add object, does it use the same mechanism for it?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure you mean by mechanism.
Does count that bucket.add object? It happens also during deployment, right? It's basically seeding kind of information inside the bucket. Does it use the same on-deploy mechanism that the cloud on-deploy thing use? If you don't have...
Sorry. The cat was literally stepping over all my buttons. Okay. Elad said no to your question.
Okay. So
let's go with that. Let's go with that. I wasn't sure I still understood, but I trust him.
Okay.
Super cool. I'll move on from that one. I know maybe we'll get to the last item on the Wingly agenda if I move fast enough.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then I'll go slow then.
No, you should go fast.
So doc change. This technically is not like a feature of Wing, but it's a pretty big improvement to our documentation. I guess I should have actually pulled. She put a screenshot. The big thing was the code examples in the documentation should actually show something that you can run. It should be correct.
Right.
And for a long time the type names were wrong because they were using TypeScript types, and now they're all set to use the wing types. Plus, we had a bunch of like hidden. They were like, what's the term? Implementation detail types.
Right.
Like you're never
Right.
actually going to use them, but they showed up here anyway, so it was really noisy.
You mind
So-
you mind if I'll share the kind of a specific doc example?
Oh, of course. If you have, yeah. If you,
Yeah. So this is again Suf work, which was great. So kind of now when we're looking at the API, for example, we have methods, and then all the pre-flight method, the list of pre-flight methods. Well, let's take someone that has both in-flight and pre-flight methods. So let's take a look at the bucket. So I'm going over to it's in one file I have how to use a bucket. And then kind of I can run this code. I can actually run this in the playground as well. And then we have the API reference of the bucket. And as you can see, we have method. We have all the pre-flight method, and then the in-flight method. And I can go to the in-flight method, and I have the in-flight delete. This doesn't look like TypeScript. The implementation of TypeScript of our system. It looks kind of more kind of looks like the signature in Wing. It's an in-flight delete that takes those two things and returns a void. This is how it will look like, and again, it's all nicely done. I love this. I love the work that Suf has done here, and it was a delight working with her on this. Is that what you want to show?
yes.
Great example. I'm bringing back to your computer. So this is your computer again.
Well, I think after that, I'm not sure how much else I want to call out. I mean, I can this release was the one that came out from the code freeze. There's
Right.
a lot of changes. This is a very active project. It's hard to even go over
Right.
a subset of them. We
Right.
had lots of contributor help. I remember UID, Nanoid, SHA 256.
Was Marcio
64.
those things? I think he
I
kind of
believe, yeah. There's Marcio and Gary did some. I did one of
Awesome.
these, I believe. But again, they're like, look, I'm like scrolling, like there's so much change, so many changes.
Yep.
So maybe I'll cut it short here, but the releases channel is always a good place to keep up to date, and maybe next time I'll actually prepare a.
I think you've done
Very
an
slide.
excellent job, man. It was great. I don't know. Let's maybe there's some nasty comments outside that we haven't seen, but I kind of like the flow of the new item. Thank you very much for this. This was awesome. It was a great discussion. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the short notice. Next time it's going to be probably again a short notice, but for something else. And any last word before we go into the second part of what's the name? Charmander from anime. Are we good?
I'm good.
Whole lot of shit, you could bet I'm in my head, but you could bet I'm in your bitch. Look, these niggas be my sons, without me they be done. Where the fuck would you get all your Mubo pictures from? That's why I've been living on this island with my blunt, ignoring all these niggas cause my energy is priceless.
I've been living on an island too. I've been living on an island too. I've been living on an island too. I've been living on an island. Tell me, can we? I've been
Keep it to myself and staying out the way. Always on my
So, hey, how you doing, Revi?
I'm good.
All with the blur background behind you. How you doing?
With some lights.
With some lights, yeah. Better than last time that we saw kind of lines all strapped on you.
I was distracted by Mark's cat.
Wow. No, Mark is yeah.
She
he
was
has a cat
coming,
coming from
going,
behind.
boom, 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 boom. So I brought this one with me.
Kind of blurry. Maybe he's
It's blurry.
blurry cat. Blurry cat.
Blurry cat.
So, Revi, we're chatting. So for people that don't know, I don't know what kind of people in this show are watching the show and don't know Revital, but shame on you guys. But Revi, she's you want to introduce yourself, Revi?
Yeah, I work with the Winglang community, with our awesome community that is growing every day. Getting to know new super awesome people. as well as working with folks that were actually with us for almost a year, less than a year, but day one for the community. I think it was from last November or so. So it's really great to work with you all.
Awesome. And who are we going to chat with?
Oh my goodness! Speaking of community, so we are going to talk to Jono,
The guy who put C in community.
Jono. So
Something cheesy.
Jono spent, if I remember correctly, the number more than 20 years exploring, testing the science of building communities. I want to say dozens of companies, if not hundreds of companies. He also wrote 2 best-selling books, and I have the pleasure to meet him every 2 weeks, and even more than that, in his CLC training, which is the Community Leadership Core Training. And we just had our session like an hour and a half ago.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's bring Jono into our show. His first appearance in the English show.
Woo!
Hello.
Hello, Jono.
How are you doing?
We're doing good.
It's been really fun sitting. It's been quite fun sitting backstage, just watching you all do your thing. It's very cool. I love the Wingly update.
Nice.
Did you like Mark's cat?
Oh, it's amazing, amazing. It's so slick as well. Like all this, like all the animations and everything. It's very cool. Big fan.
And I was not familiar with their music channel. Do we have that?
Yeah, of course. Music channel. Yeah,
I'm not part of that channel. I will join that.
Yeah, it's private. We didn't invite you. No.
I don't think that there is such thing.
No one will dare. No one will dare.
So, Jono, I gave like a few sentences about you. I'll let you maybe introduce yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you did a pretty rocking job. I mean, I'm just really passionate about communities. I've been doing it for about 20 odd years now, and I used to lead community at Canonical for the Ubuntu project, where I worked with an amazing team of people. And then I went to X Prize, which has these huge incentive competitions, and then I went to GitHub. And when I was at GitHub, I realized I don't want to work for a big company. So I started consulting and doing my own thing. And I was consulting for years. And then, as you mentioned, Revital, like earlier this year, I launched the Community Leadership Core, which is an accelerator that is designed to help companies get the most out of their community initiatives. And it's been it's been a fun ride because, just kind of like launching something and then just dialing it in based upon feedback from yourself and other members. It's been really cool. I've been having a great time doing it. So
that's awesome. So did you actually start as someone who has a lot of passion to people and communities? Because I know I started as a software engineer, and here I am working with the Winglang community. What was your journey?
Yeah. Mine was a little odd because I was when I was growing up, I was never really very good at school. Like I got terrible grades. When you grow up in England, you do like your mandatory education that finishes at 16, and then you do a couple of years of what's called A levels, and then you go to university. When you do your A levels, you do 4 subjects, and my grades were 2 D's, an E, and an N. Like an N is where you pretty much you spell your name wrong on the exam. Yeah, it's worse than a fail.
What's that?
I just didn't.
We don't see that grade in movies. We only see
it was horrendous, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So, but when I managed to talk my way into university, and when I was there, I started writing for computer magazines. So when I finished university, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was thinking about becoming a developer, but I'm not that good of a software engineer. And it was either be a developer or try and be a rock star.
Which decade are we talking about?
This was I went to university in 2000. So
Awesome.
yeah. So yeah, my degree is actually in basically CD-ROMs from the 90s. Not useful. So
Wow.
when I was at university, like everybody was finishing university and I was freaking out, like, oh, what are we going to do? And people had ideas for jobs. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I just ended up writing and I became a journalist for 2 years.
Oh, interesting.
But it's, yeah. So I used to write for all kinds of magazines, like Linux format,
Okay.
Mac format. But it was really when my brother got me into Linux in 1998. And in Carter, my brother got me into Linux in 1998, and that's when I discovered communities. I'd never heard of people around the world working together, and because growing up in England, we didn't really have in America, like everybody was connected to the internet. I don't know what it was like in Israel, but in England, you had to pay 10 pence a minute to get connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So it was this thing that you wanted to be connected to, but you couldn't get connected to because you didn't have any money. And I fell in love with communities. I was like, I just want to figure out how to do it. And that's when I started building communities when I was like 18. So
Really?
Yeah.
How did you fall in love with it? What was what do you like about it?
What I found so exciting was, back then I was just using Windows on my computer and I heard about Linux. My brother installed Slackware Linux on my computer and then just left. So he replaced Windows with it. And I was like, okay, how does this thing work? And I used to work in a bookshop and I went and bought this book. I've actually still got a copy of it. And in the first chapter, it talks about how people all over the world build this software and they share it with each other. And just the idea of people who've never met each other building software together just blew my mind. I'd never heard of that before. And I was like, how does that work? Like, there's the technical thing, which is interesting. But for me, what I was more interested in was like, how do you create that? How do you get those people together? And it's just, So the first,
Your aha moment for community was by reading the book and seeing that this is possible, not by experiencing something. That's
I'd never experienced it myself. And I think part of it was, I was kind of this, without turning this into a terrible biopic of my life. I was just like a regular kid living in England. And when I got into Linux, I was really excited about it, but no one who lived near me knew what it was. So I started getting to know people on the internet who shared this passion, and it built this like tribal thing. Like I worked in this bookshop. I used to get those things where you'd iron on transfers into a T-shirt, and I used to iron on like a penguin image onto a T-shirt and wear T-shirts.
Yep,
Remember those?
Yeah, I remember.
Just so somebody would say, "Oh, is that the Linux penguin?" and then I could talk to them. It was
nice.
The first community I set up was called Linux UK, and it was a community of UK Linux users. Which my dirty secret is that I built it in Microsoft Front Page because I didn't know how to write it, and I didn't know how to write HTML. And then just as I got to meet people, I was like, wow, I got to meet people who I've been friends with since those days because we were all passionate about the same thing. So
I have to ask you a question. So it's basically the product that made that good connection. Today in our training, someone said, forget about the product. It doesn't really matter. It's all about what the community folks are getting from the community. So those are completely the opposite. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy here is, when I think back to those days, and I think the same thing applies here because it's just human nature. When I fell in love with community and open source and Linux and all the rest of it, it reminded me about because I've been into heavy metal for years, right? Like I've been an Iron Maiden fan since I was 9.
Yeah, I can see this about you. It's very
And when you meet someone, when I'd meet someone with long hair, or I'd meet someone with an Iron Maiden t-shirt on, you're like, okay, we're connected by this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that what's interesting about communities is that same thing happened to me with Linux, but I just didn't know it at the time. And so to me, when you identify who your audience is, so like if we look at Wing, right, we think about people who are building for the cloud, people who are building applications. like when you can identify those people and you can understand what they're struggling with and what their interests are, and just culturally, like where everything lines up, like there's in jokes in tech, right? There's things that we're familiar with that people outside of tech don't know about, like Hacker News, for example. Like when you identify those things and you glue people together around them, I think it builds that sense of unity. And I don't think you need the product for that. To me, where the product's helpful is when, you know, if everybody's using Winglang to build software, brilliant. Now we can have a conversation about that as well. But to me, too many companies, they only focus on the product. And I think we should focus on the things that connect us together. And I always like to start with pain points, like what sucks for your audience? Because if you can help them solve those and you give them some quick wins, you're already starting to get into their mindset.
Right. Interesting.
Agree. I have a question. Diversity is super important and crucial.
Yep.
And it's really challenging. And I was wondering, give me some tips, Jono. How do I make a connection? How do we bring more females to our community? It's really hard.
Yeah. It's such a tricky topic. And I'll share, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I'll share with you what I've learned. So when the topic of diversity comes up, it tends to be very focused on diversity of like human traits that we're born with, right? Like what gender you are, what sexuality you are, where you live, your socioeconomic status and stuff like that. And I think that's really important. But I think it's one side of the coin. Because I think when you build a community, you need to have that, but you also need to have diversity of perspectives and ideas and opinions, right? So if we look at the physical attributes, like if you look at women, for example, right? One of the things it took me way too long to learn was that earlier on in my career, I've always tried to be an ally in diversity, but my approach was like create an environment that's welcoming to everybody. And that's one element that I think is important, right? But I think what is connected to that is also people feel comfortable when they feel represented. So if you come into a community and there's more people like you there, then you feel more comfortable in being in that community. But also building a community where bad behavior is dealt with and where leadership demonstrates the behavior that you want to see, right? Like, so for example, I've always admired leaders who are kind, respectful, courteous, but no bullshit, right? Like being frank and honest and direct, but in a way that opens the tent for everybody. The tricky thing, I think, when it comes to the hardest element of that, I think it's easier to create an environment that's welcoming to everybody, and it's easier to have leaders who do that. The harder thing is the representation, because there are multiple different reasons why there are fewer people of one demographic in a particular space, you know. And I'm especially not an expert here, so take this with a pinch of salt. But you know, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, there are many people who grow up in rural parts of the world who are not exposed to engineering and technology. They're not on the internet as much. Like the lack of access to available broadband and Wi-Fi was a major issue in a lot of people getting into the open source world. And I think there are similar things that will apply to people of color and women and other folks. So so I think we've got to find the root causes that get in the way and encourage people to kind of come in to increase that representation. But the thing that I think often gets missed out in the diversity conversation is we have to create a marketplace of ideas. One of the things that worries me about some online communities is they become echo chambers where everybody's got the same opinion and the same perspective. And that if you say something different to that opinion and perspective, you're seen as an outsider. And we have to break through that. Like, to me, the greatest growth and learning that we have is when people will challenge us, but in a way that is courteous and respectful, right? So, you know, I want somebody to come into my community and tell me ways in which it can be improved, ways in which it can be better. But I'm only interested in entertaining that if they're going to be respectful and if they're going to be willing to play a role in that as well. Yeah. So to me, we have to have both.
Yeah. I just want to chime in. I, as an Israeli, which we're very good at telling our mind. Not that good as being respectful, but it's also kind of skewed to the cultural norm that we live in, right? I mean,
Right.
I may be considered respectful in Israel. I think I am. I don't know, but I'm not.
We'll find out.
I'm not considered respectful in the in United States, in certain parts in the United States. And this is also kind of part of diversity. We need to acknowledge the fact that the norm, basically we're judging people based on our norm, while every culture has its own norm. So it's complicated, and
it's so interesting you say that, because I was literally talking to my wife about this last night. So Paul Graham, you know, the guy who was at Y Combinator, he posted a tweet talking about British people, and he was basically saying, you know, the stereotype of British people is kind of arrogant, a little bit aloof, that kind of thing. He said, but most British people aren't like that, and that's been my experience as well. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm British, but someone responded in that tweet. Well, someone responded in that tweet thread about the like Stephen Fry, the comedian, was asked about what's the difference between British comedy and American comedy, and he basically said, like, in American comedy, the focal point, like the main characters are like they're kind of a big deal, like they are bold and vivacious, and you know, the guy gets the girl gets the guy, or whatever it might be. Whereas in British comedy, the characters are always like the underdog, someone who wants to get up here and can't quite make it, and that's why it's funny. And I came to this dramatic realization. And I came to this dramatic realization last night that, and this gets to your point, is that when you grow up in that environment, like I grew up in England, where being overtly proud of your accomplishments, what you call bragging, is just a complete no-no, where you have to be really, you know, you got to be understated. And if you get ahead of your skis, people will call you on it. When you grow up in that environment, it's hard to break out of it. And I think that is an important element of diversity, is like, you know, someone who grew up in California and somebody who grew up in Alabama had two very different experiences. Exactly. How they grew up.
Exactly. So. Very different. I agree.
So, Jono, you mentioned you were a journalist, and I mentioned that you wrote 2 different books, best-selling books. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the first one, The Art of Community and People Powered are the books that have done most well. I put out 6 books in total. One of them was really bad, like complete career embarrassment, a PHP book that I put out that has a whole story behind it that I won't bore you with. And my first book was Linux Desktop Hacks, which I co-wrote.
What's the name?
Linux Desktop Hacks. Yeah, which I co-wrote in 2006, I think it was. The Art of Community was a book where I really wanted to kind of write your career book. And I did this when I was at Canonical. It was in, it was 2008 when I put the first edition out. There's been 2 editions. And I thought I kind of knew what I was doing back in 2008. I'd been doing it for a while. This experience of building the Ubuntu community was I felt very fortunate that I'd been able to go through that. And in retrospect, like, I just had no idea what I was doing.
Really?
Like,
interesting.
Yeah. Like, what I've learned, for me, like, leaving Canonical was a touch point in my career, because I left, next year will be 10 years since I left. What I've learned in the last 10 years is 5 times what I learned prior to that.
Wow.
Yeah, just working with lots of different people. So I did the first edition, and then I learned a bunch. So I did a second edition, and the problem is that the book's like 600 pages at that point. It's massive, and it's a bit old. Like, there's talk of, like, Google Plus is mentioned in that book.
Oh, nice.
So I kept having people like reaching out to me saying, we're interested in hiring you as a consultant. I just bought your book, The Art of Community. I'm excited to read it. And I'd be like, don't read that. And if you're like a founder or whatever, like 600 pages is way too much. So I realized I needed to write a new book, and the kind of thing that you could pick up at an airport, you know, like a 300 pages, what you call a business book. But most business books suck. I didn't really want to write a book where you read it and you're like, okay, what do I do now? So, but I knew that to write a business book, there's a whole process. You have to find an agent. You got to put together a proposal. And it took me 6 months to build the proposal and find an agent. I talked to 200 different agents, and everybody rejected me, apart from 3. One guy told me that if I wrote this book, it would end my career, which I thought was interesting. And then and it took 6 months my proposal was like 33 pages long. It took 6 months to get that together, and then we had 4 publishers interested, and then I settled with HarperCollins. So it was a journey.
Wow.
I don't know if I'd do it again.
You mentioned most business books are terrible. Any book you would recommend, a business book?
Like books that I like?
Yeah.
Business book.
Oh, yeah. So there's a number like on very different topics. Like I'm a big fan of Stoicism. So like The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, The Daily Stoic, I'm a fan of. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think, is an amazing book, despite the horrible title. There's a really, really worse title. There's a book called The $1 Million Consultant, which I read when I started out. My friend, who sadly is not with us anymore, recommended it for me. And then there's like loads of like I've just read a book called Hook Point, which was pretty good.
Is that Eyal?
Oh, you're thinking of Hooked by Nir Eyal, which is a great book. Hook Point is by Brendan Kane, I think it is. So I think I've got 20 of them. Like I go through phases of like wanting to read and then phases of just wanting to watch YouTube videos. So I'm in a YouTube phase right now.
What do you
mentioned a lot of books in the training, I have to say. Every time, like, I'm taking a note. This I need to
a lot
read
of recommendations.
this, that one. Yeah, tons of books on my to-do list.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, if it's okay, if you can share with us one of the less pleasant moments you have had as a community manager.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's been. I think there's been a few. Like the one that immediately springs to mind, because there was a learning in it, and I may have said this in CLC, is years ago I was asked to do a keynote at OSCON, and it was a big deal for where I was in my career. It was like 5,000 people, all of my peers, and it was 10 minutes. And I was used to doing 45-minute talks. I've done loads of 30, 45-minute talks. And I really struggled to kind of put something meaningful together in 10 minutes. And I got on the stage and I did it, and it was bad. It was really bad. And I got off the stage. And the worst thing when you have that experience is you go to people and he's like, "What did you think?" And everyone's like, "It was great." And you're like, "No, listen, don't lie to me." So anyway, a good friend of mine, Steve Wally, he said, "Look, some people are good at writing short stories. Some people are good at writing novels. You're good at writing novels. You just need to learn how to create a shorter talk," which was just profoundly helpful advice. So now I knew what I needed to do, but I was dealing with the embarrassment of I just humiliated myself in front of all my peers. So I went and wrote a blog post, and I basically said, I just keynoted OSCON and it sucked, and I explained what had happened. I wrote it. I hid in the corner of the Oregon Convention Center and wrote this blog post. Nice. And then I went and got really drunk that night. And it ended up being a good experience because I learned a lot from that. And people came up, like the OSCON, speaker committee came up and said that they were happy that I wrote that. So that was the moment that sucked.
I love that because you are really inspiring. So
thank you.
To hear that even you can make those type of mistakes, it's good to hear, I have to say.
Yeah. Oh, there's lots of them.
I think the showing vulnerability is actually a skill set. I mean, being able to do this,
it's a strength.
We're all humans. We all know what's going on in our head. It's not a surprise that the same thing happened in your head. and
Yeah.
the ability to share it. It's such an empowering and also kind of it removes a lot of walls between us. I really like
Yeah.
that.
It's the only way we get better, right? Is
Right.
we've got to be honest with the reality we live in. So
Right.
Awesome.
So, Ravi, we have basically we're running out of time. Do you have any last question you want to ask John or John? Anything
I
you
think
want to?
that was a good ending question, I think.
yeah. No, well, thank you. And I just got to say, you folks have been such a pleasure to have in the community leadership call. Revital is just constantly just kicking ass repeatedly. It's amazing. And congratulations on your fundraising, the whole deal. I think it's super cool what you're doing.
Thank you very
And
much.
yeah,
Thank you so
thanks
much,
for having me
John.
on.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you so
All
very
right.
much.
Take care.
Yes. So I'm. Thank you. So Ravi, that was a very interesting discussion with Jono.
It's nothing. I have like 10 more questions I wanted to ask.
Wow. I'm sure you're gonna ask him.
Maybe we need to do no, we will do maybe another session sometimes.
How did you like the show? We're not gonna do the last thing. We're already running out of time, and Dan is showing me that we're running out of time.
Okay.
What are you taking from this show? If you should we invite Mark for more episodes?
We should definitely do that part. It was really interesting. And Amiel asked me today, hey, how can I tell what's going on with the new features, stage of the company? What do we have as part of the Wing language? Right. So I think it was great. I also think that we should definitely do next time good first issues and help wanted issues. Yeah. I think these are goods in terms of how community can support and engaged and be familiar with all of our, all of our stuff, all of the things that they can basically just chime in and pick. So we should definitely do that. Yeah.
I think we should see a little bit of Hassan, a little bit of Chris.
Oh my goodness, definitely.
Awesome.
I agree.
Well, I think that what we're going to do right now, we're going to go back to the last part of Mark DJ's song.
Yes.
And then we're going to say goodbye. So this is part 3 of Mark DJ's song.
All right.
I'm not going to pronounce this well, but Charmander by Anime.
My energy's priceless. Told my jeweler ISIS. I'm way too decisive. Don't catch that ego-itis. When I'm up in London, everybody say your highness. Not because I'm royal, but because I be the highest. Sipping champagne, bitch, I do my damn thing. Born for this like Matt Dane. Red whip look like Chastain. People be so phony, that's why I be on my lonely. People be so phony, that's why I be on my lonely.
I've been living on